So often people say our healthcare system's broken. It's not broken. It's rigged. The average American is on 4 or more prescription drugs. 70% of Americans can't qualify for military service. 1.7 million Americans are dying a year of chronic disease. Bayer was testing its medications on Jewish concentration camp occupants, and there's literally letters back and forth between Bayer and the Third Reich. We received 180 women in great health and working order. Unfortunately, none of them survived phase 1 of the trial.
When you say, okay, antidepressants work about the same as placebo, why do people get triggered when we talk about that research?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think...
Brigham, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, man.
Thank you for having me.
You drove in for me. Thanks, man.
It's not too bad of a drive, though.
Few hours.
Yeah.
That's
Texas
I
is big.
I receive it as love. For you driving 3 hours for me, it means a lot, man.
I appreciate you having me.
Of course. First of all, I have to say this. Like, you have such a badass name. I love your name so much.
Oh, thank you.
What's the background behind it?
What's funny is my last name literally probably got me every job I had when I was in the corporate world. I swear, I go into interviews and they go Buhler, when they be calling off the resumes to bring whoever's next. And then they're like, oh, have you ever heard that before?
Yes, I have. For 40 years.
And I loved that movie as a kid. In Brigham, I'm not Mormon, but my dad, this is crazy. My dad in college took a class about religions, and he didn't remember anything about the Mormon faith or anything. He just remembered the guy had multiple wives. And he thought it would be cool to name his first son Brigham. So my mom said no, they were going to name me Justin. And the day before, my aunt had my cousin and named him Justin. And it was like a family feud because my mom was mad that they had named him Justin and took the name. And so they didn't have another name. So my dad got to name me Brigham. So he won. He got his wish.
That's amazing. So you're not Mormon at all?
No.
That is even funnier.
Yeah.
That is really funny. Yeah, go dad. Go dad. And we're both kind of around the same age. So we both, before we started recording, talking about growing up, and same with producer Mike here, grew up watching Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And your favorite was?
My favorite was Raphael.
Okay, I was a Leonardo guy myself.
Yeah, the leader.
Yeah. I wonder if like our favorite Turtles tells us something about our
I know. I liked Raphael because he had like an attitude and was edgy and challenged the system. He was like the anti-hero hero. I always liked that because my other favorite was Wolverine as a kid.
Oh, I loved Wolverine.
Yeah.
I say I was a Cyclops guy.
Oh, yeah. So you're always
funny.
the leader. That's
so
funny.
All right. So let's dive into it. Like, let's set the stage with your background. How did you get in the industry? Because you were on the other side of the industry, I think, to begin with. Can we start there?
Yeah. Man, well, I'll go way back. Right out of college, this was before, I mean, I was young, maybe society knew, but at the time, from what I remember, people thought being a pharmaceutical rep was like a really cool, great job. I know the lens on pharmaceuticals and all that has changed, but right out of school, I was recruited to be a sales rep for Eli Lilly, which was like the creme de la creme job of its time. I mean, again, dating myself like 25 years ago at this point, almost. And so I was excited, and I came out thinking that I was going to change the world and help people. And even when you go to the trainings, you learn so much, and you think, I'm going to save this person from this chronic disease. I'm going to go out and I'm going to fight to help people. Yeah. Is what you really think and feel. And then you get into it and you realize it's a lot different than you expect, even all the way back then. And so I launched Cialis in North America, which is, I've always said it was a fun medication to bring to the market because you're not like, the antidepressants and a lot of that, there's side effects, there's challenges, there's all this. But erectile dysfunction, the message was like, you're bringing relationships back for people. You're rekindling flames. You're allowing, like our thing was like, allow couples to choose the moment that was right for them. Let's get back to the relationship, not letting a medication decide when you're going to have an encounter with like your significant other or partner. And that resonated. It was neat to me. It's like you can have a romantic evening and relax and enjoy the evening and blah, 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 and let life take you where it goes. But so after being a drug rep for a few years, they moved me for Cialis, they moved me to the antidepressants. And that's when I started to go, even at 23, I think I was 22, maybe, I'm like, wait a second. I remember distinctly being in the training and going, wait, Prozac's efficacy rate is only a few percentage points more than placebo. It was not significant. And I was stunned. I'm like, hold on, placebo's in the 40s on the efficacy rate. And I don't remember, it's been forever. I think Prozac was like 50-something% efficacy, and placebo was 43 or 46 or something.
Yeah. And every time I talk about that research, people get like, when you say, okay, antidepressants work about the same as placebo, they get really triggered by that. But it's a testament to the power of placebo more than anything else, right? It's the power of mind over matter and the power of suggestion. And someone said in the comment section when I cited the study and talked about it, they said, for me, my depression's better just knowing I have the pills in the medicine cabinet, right? Which I think there's something to that, right? But why do people get triggered when we talk about that research?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think and I even see this with the GLP-1s. I don't know what your thoughts are on GLP-1s, but a lot of times people are looking for hope. And they're looking for an answer, and they just want a solution to the problem. And people are tired. The data's confusing. They're getting told one thing by one person, another thing by another person, and they want to be able to believe in their doctor or the establishment, or that they weren't misled. You know, I mean, we could go down the COVID vaccine path too. Like it's very polarizing.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm always here to say, like, I'm not a clinician, and what you decide with your clinician is your pathway forward. I'm not here to say things are good or bad. I just think there's alternatives, and like I think it's fair to give people the full story so they know that maybe this isn't this silver bullet, this you know, the golden pill that you were told it's going to be. Because think about this: for the 50% of people that may get upset because they have gotten good results, you've got that other 50% that go, well, what's wrong with me? Why didn't it work for me?
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly. Okay, so you're in that space. You got moved from Cialis to antidepressants. What went on then?
Then after I got involved in the antidepressants, one of the things that I saw that really jarred me was their efforts to grow the antipsychotic market. And to me, I'm like, it went from this very niche patient population, right? Really sick people, to a talk track where we were going in there and they were asking us to say, think of that mother who's up late at night, laying in bed, her thoughts are racing, she can't go to sleep. Maybe she wakes up in the middle of the night because she's so stressed and anxious that she just starts cleaning the house, right? That's a place where this medication can help. And I'm thinking, well, wait a second. That's not what this medication's indicated for. And like, this is this niche that people start to grow. And in your role as a rep kind of pivots. And I didn't realize this the first few years. It's not find what's right for the patient and help guide a clinician. It's get out there and grow market. And when your goal is to grow market and hit a quarterly earning and hit quarterly profits, how can you really, truly do what's best for patient care? And then I jump out of that and I go to med device and I go, man, this isn't for me. I'm going to go be a med device rep. And for med device, it's a totally different animal. You're in the operating room. You're up at 5 a.m. You are the right-hand guy or girl to an array of surgeons in your geographic region. You're standing in surgeries. There's times where they don't start the surgery because you're not there. They're like, no, where's the rep? And they're waiting for you to get there because they want you to help. They know how to do the surgery and they are experts in that procedure, but they may not know the equipment or the newest evolution of the technology. And your job is to be there and be a resource. And that was a lot of fun for a lot of years and a different environment. But what you do see is the silo that I think you've talked about. I know Casey Means has talked about this. They silo out healthcare so much that it almost gives plausible deniability. You know, like, and so standing in those surgeries, there were so many times where you're like, as I learned more and learned more about the clinical side and the anatomy, and you're like, I'm not a doctor. I'm just the rep. My job's to be here and to provide support for this surgery. But this surgery doesn't seem like it needed to happen. Like, in a lot of cases. you're in there going, this doesn't seem like this. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
so even in that space, but you in a way have plausible deniability. You're like, my job is to be here and to do my job to make sure this surgery goes as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
And so you can silo yourself and put your blinders on and go, I'm just going to help do these things. And then the big riveting moment for me was from that point, I got into, I had lost my brother to opioids, which you and I were talking about a little bit before we started the podcast. And it was ironic because I lost him to the very thing that I was trying to start up, which was a non-abusive, non-addictive opioid alternative for surgeons when they have patients coming out the other end of surgery.
Mm.
And while I'm in the middle of trying to start my pharmacy and get all this going, I lose my brother to opioids.
Mm.
And it was just so jarring and shocking and frustrating. And my whole message was, there are alternatives to these medicines that are being pushed on these patients, especially surgical candidates. You know, why are we writing them an abusive, addictive opioid when we could use a non-abusive, non-addictive, like ketamine-based topical that will address most of that orthopedic pain pre-op and post-op without the risk of addiction or abuse? And I spun up a pharmacy and we build insurances. And that gave me exposure into the whole other side of the healthcare world, which is working within the insurance framework. And so I don't want to ramble, but seeing from the drug rep to the surgical rep to the surgeon to the primary care, there were times I would meet with primary cares and I didn't understand insurance because I was just a drug rep. And I would hear primary cares venting about, I'm just doing the best I can. I've got to see 40 patients a day to make a living, Brigham. I don't have a lot of time today. What do you got for me? And they're just trying to survive.
Wow. How did we get here? I mean, the history of it. I mean, the sort of corporate capture of the insurance industry, which I want to get into the sort of granular details, but the medical system as a whole, right, and all its sort of, subsidiaries. How far back does this go?
I mean, from what I can see and what I can decipher is the big change happened when the HMOs took over and the insurance companies took over and medicine became corporately captured. Because then it became, how do we drive quarterly earnings and quarterly profits? Just like how the drug companies are looking at numbers. And if you're CEO, it's all about incentives. Show me the incentives, I'll show you the outcomes. Same thing in medicine. Show me the incentives, and people are going to go towards what they're incentivized to do. And so if we look at the drug companies, they're incentivized to hit quarterly earnings, quarterly profits, and grow market share. Jump to the med device companies. What are they incentivized to do? Quarterly earnings, quarterly profits, and grow market share. But what a lot of people don't realize is so are the hospitals.
Right.
And so are the surgery centers. And so are the insurance companies. And I'm sure you know this as a clinician now, the largest employer of doctors and primary cares is indirectly United Healthcare. Like, the insurance companies now own medical practices. And even testifying in front of the Texas state legislature, I think, 3 weeks ago, I right before me, I wasn't asked to testify on this topic, but right before, I'm sure you testify on the food topics too. Right before I went to testify on the school menus and the problems there, they were testifying about telemedicine. And I was watching lobbyists for the state of Texas fight expanding accessibility of telemedicine. And so while these lobbyists are up there, I'm just Googling who they are, who they represent, and it all goes back to right what you would think. They are being funded by these giant conglomerates to come in and put in obstacles and prevent patient accessibility to guys like yourself.
Yeah.
And to keep people in that system.
It is wild.
And it all comes back to there are buku dollars being made off chronic disease, chronic illness. There's collusion and corporate capture throughout the entire healthcare ecosystem. And it is leading to the chronic disease crisis that you and I have been fighting against.
Okay, so we see these people on social media when we talk about these topics, and they will say we're conspiracy theorists. Like, this is you're creating this sort of nefarious thing. It's not nefarious at all. What do you say to those people?
I think it started out. It's the siloed conundrum that you and I talk about, right? It's built to give plausible. Do I think that your clinician is attempting to make you cry? No.
Absolutely
no, not at all.
Yeah.
I think your clinician worked their tail off, went to school, cares about you, and gets gobbled up into a system where they start going, Brigham, I just got to make it through the day.
Right.
And I can't make it as a private practice primary care in this country. So I'm going to take a job at this big institution. And I'm going to drive change from within this institution, and I'm going to help patients, and I'm going to be a good clinician. And then they take a job there and they go, oh, man. Okay, now I'm out of the pot and into the fire. And again, they're still doing their best to navigate a broken system. And then you go to the rep who's in that case. He or she's doing their best to provide services in that system. I was part of that solution, right? And so I'm just speaking from my knowledge base, and take it with a grain of salt. I'm not saying that what I tell you is the gospel. I'm telling you what I saw and what I believe to be the truth. I think people in general are good. And I think people in general want to do right by humanity. But I also think if we build incentive systems and we give people easy exit roads and we create environments where people say, well, I didn't create the chronic disease. I'm just trying to fix it. And the tool in my tool belt is this pill. Right? And this is what the institutions taught me, and this is what academia taught me, and this is what tools in my tool belt. So I reach for the tool in my tool belt. It doesn't make that person good or bad. It just gives them, and the problem is that's every aspect of the system all the way through the system. When you get to the insurance executive, they go, we're providing care for a lot of people, but I also have to make earnings for my shareholders and hit my quarterly earnings and incentives. And my fiduciary duty to my stock investors is to maximize our profits. But at what point are we maximizing profitability at the cost of human capital?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. So can you kind of set the stage for people? Like, where does the United States add up compared to other Western nations? To set the stage for people, like, where does the United States add up compared to other Western nations, developed nations, when it comes to chronic health? Because I think every time I talk about the stats, people are shocked and they don't believe me. They're like, no, they can't be true. America's number one.
Yeah, no. Well, what's a tragedy is we are number one on healthcare cost, right?
Yes, we know how to spend money on it.
But then we also lead the world in obesity. We lead the world in the chronic disease crisis. Like, as we're going through this layer by layer, one of the things that I point out is we easily get captured ourselves by the news media of the week, the flavor of the week. And so often it's focused on like war or the risk of war. And what I tried to explain to the Senate is there's a war happening every day right now in our own backyard. 1.7 million Americans are dying a year of chronic disease.
Yeah.
Preventable chronic disease. But yet we spend more than almost any other nation to try to on healthcare. But the problem is we're not spending that to prevent chronic disease. We're spending that to treat and mask the symptomology of the evolution of the disease state that is heading towards these chronic diseases.
Yeah.
Right? The cancer that develops in your 40s started in your 30s. The diabetes that develops in your 30s started in your 20s. And throughout your time frame working through the healthcare system, a lot of times nobody's even looking at those things.
Yeah.
And then you wake up one day and you're chronically ill. Right. And you're on 4 or more prescription medicines, which you said, like for America, the average American is on 4 or more prescription drugs. 70% of Americans can't qualify for military service. This is a catastrophic problem that is bigger than dollars and money and statistics. Behind every statistic is a human life.
Yeah.
And that's what's so sad. It's like We're talking about 1.7 dying of chronic disease.
Yeah.
I mean, if we start peeling in, and I'm sure you've covered it, but you start going down the numbers of how many people are getting diagnosed with chronic diseases, and every single category is growing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I usually walk back and go, okay, so look at all this growth, all the issues with the system. But just like in medicine, I'm sure you say you're here to uncover the root cause, not treat the symptoms. In medicine, our goal is to uncover the root cause and prevent the chronic disease, not treat the symptomology.
Mm-hmm.
In our ecosystem, what we're doing is seeing the symptomology, but the root cause is corporate capture. The root cause is that our systems have been flawed and corrupted, and it has pivoted to not focus on prevention and to instead push medications and treatments.
Yeah.
And that's why I love to make sure that people understand what the drug reps incentive game is, what the like the big pharmaceutical companies' incentives are, what the hospitals' incentives are now, right? Every check and balance has almost been systematically removed, and everybody's operating with blinders on and going, well, I'm going to use the tool in my tool belt to help this person.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, the medicine didn't work. I'm going to refer them to this next layer, which is surgery. Oh, I can fix you. Let me do the surgery. Oh, insurance is going to cover it. No, they didn't cover all of it. Here's your huge out-of-pocket copay or deductible. And that's why healthcare is the number one reason for bankruptcy in America. And it's the number one budgetary constraint for Texas, number one budgetary concern for the federal government. I mean, it's a big problem. But the whole time, every industry affiliated with it is making all-time record profits.
Wow. Okay, so just to be clear, like when people say, okay, they get kickbacks, or you're talking about it's incentivized for disease management, not for healing. What type of kickbacks are we talking about? Like, what's going on with the sort of the incentivization of the perpetuation of chronic disease?
So it's a little complicated, but so essentially there's a middleman called the pharmacy benefit managers. Have you ever talked about that?
I haven't, but I wanted to talk about the PBMs,
yes.
right? Yeah.
And so the reason the PBMs are so important is the PBMs were established in the 80s as an advocate, as an ally for me and you and everybody else. Their sole purpose at the time was to fight to drive down the cost of prescription drug care and make prescription medications affordable for us, for the average American.
Mm-hmm.
What happened is those quickly got captured by the big five insurance companies. And so the reason that's important is United, Cigna, Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and CVS Caremark, the big five, own over 87% of the prescription drug care in our country. So if you're filling a prescription and insurance is covering it, it is most likely owned by one of those insurance companies. Now, the pharmacy benefit manager that was meant to drive down the cost of your drug care got bought by these big five, and instead of driving down the cost of care, started driving up the cost of care. Why? Because they went out and they negotiated with the big pharmaceutical companies and said, look, if you want to be on our pharmacy PBM drug placement plan, you'll give us a rebate.
Mm.
And the drug companies go, okay, well, we're not going to give up our margins, so we'll have to raise the price. And the insurance companies go, okay, raise the price and give us a rebate on the back end. Why would you want to do that? And this is where this gets pretty nuanced. And even a lot of clinicians, as I explain it, they go, what? That's why they've been changing all these meds on me and making me write something else for my patient and going against my medical recommendation and switching them to a step down or an alternative? And as you start to see it, you go, oh my God. So the insurance company now has a rebate. Let's just use let's use insulin, right? There was a big Senate House committee investigation into the cost of insulin and why it went up. What they uncovered is roughly 30% of the cost of insulin was being held at the pharmacy benefit manager level as a rebate. So there goes 30% that's held at that level. Now you go, well, wait, the insurance still covered it. No, because there's copays, deductibles, and tier placement. So they'll place the drug not based off what medication is best for you or your doctor recommended, but what medication gave them the biggest rebate at the middleman holding company. That is not a middleman at all. That is their company that they own. And so a large chunk of the big five insurance companies' profits last year, like let's use United Healthcare as an example. I think they made $360 billion in revenue. A large chunk of their profit is on the books of the pharmacy benefit manager that they own, Optum, right? And so Optum is holding a chunk of that profit. Then at the end of the year, guess what happens? Those insurers go to employers. Most Americans are insured through their employer. The insurance companies say, Joe Bob was on insulin all year long. It cost us $380 a month. We've got to raise your copays, your premiums, your deductibles, and your employer expenses. You're going to have to pay for this. We can't lose money. But they didn't lose money. They made money. The money was held at the pharmacy benefit manager. And where that gets even deeper is owning pharmacies. When I owned a pharmacy, if your grandmother were to come in to fill a simple drug like metformin, and I look at it, I type it in the computer system. This is when I was in retail and I billed insurances. At the time, I had a gag clause. So if your grandma came in and I saw that metformin, your copay was $10, I could have sold you the full month for literally like $4. My cost on it was $2. I would have made a couple dollars. I'm not allowed to tell you at the time that it was cheaper to pay cash. So I take your $10. I don't get to keep that money. That money goes to the PBM. So the PBM would claw back $8. I would get like $2 and some change. And most of that money went to the PBM. Well, that's profit. So if we built a system where the more medications you're on, the more profitable the pharmaceutical companies are, the more profitable the insurance companies are, the more profitable all of these touch points in the system are. Not the clinicians. The clinicians are just doing their job, but clinicians in America who are in the insurance framework are doing the best they can to operate within that framework. And like I said earlier, Optum has gobbled up and is now one of the largest employers of clinicians in our country. And so now the clinicians are almost employees in a lot of instances of these conglomerates that are monetizing our chronic disease.
Wow. Perfectly said.
It's very complicated.
It's complicated, but you distilled it so well, sort of the interworkings of it all. And that's when we talk in our space about the sick care system, that's what we're talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then separate from that, because I became this like healthcare entrepreneur, I went out, and that's why I own Ways2Well today. I spun up, Ways2Well it is a telemedicine company, but bigger than that, it started out as a blood work company. All I was doing was going out and educating clinicians on the importance of getting proactive and predictive. And my message was this: if your goal is to truly stop chronic disease in its tracks, does it not make sense to start by looking under the hood, by doing a deep dive into the patient at the biological level to truly assess, maybe this depression is hormonal. Maybe this anxiety is hormonal. Maybe this weight gain is hormonal. Before we reach first and write a pill, should we not first look at this patient holistically and identify?
Wild thought, right?
Yeah.
Novel idea. Like what I want to ask you about, you mentioned United and how powerful they are, big they are. I mean, hugely unpopular for people that have gone, obviously so, for people that go through a health crisis and they're bankrupt from their healthcare costs and the sort of Ponzi scheme of the insurance industry. What do you think of the United, the murder of the United CEO? Like, and then it's interesting. Obviously, murder is never okay, and then you see this sort of glamorizing of the kid who did it, supposedly. So what's your thoughts on that, as being in that?
I mean, I agree with you. Like the situation is terrible and it's tragic, and it's tough. It's sad. So I'll focus. Obviously, nobody ever condones that type of action, you or myself included. Like, it's terrible, it's sad, it's tragic. But when you look at the response, it does make me go, should we not ask more questions and begin to go, what would spur the American people to be this frustrated and this angry?
Right.
And it's because people are spending their life savings, their hard-earned money every day to buy in and fund a system that they're expecting to be there for them.
Right.
And then when they need these medications or treatments more than ever, that same obstructionist mindset I was telling you about, if there's so much money, all I'm getting at is to go back to answer that question and the previous question, because they kind of blend in a way, to answer the question of conspiratorial, is there this, is there that? I'm not saying there is or isn't, but what I'm saying is if you align the incentive systems to monetize chronic disease and to profiteer off of prescription drug care, then you begin to align the incentives with a pressure-filled system where everyone is under the gun to hit a quarterly earning and a quarterly profit. And I look at it, and I'm an executive at United Healthcare, and Joe Bob wants a spine surgery that's going to cost me an exorbitant amount of money because I'm not monetizing the surgery. Or I can keep Joe Bob on a prescription medicine that does profit my business unit and does allow me to hit my quarterly earnings. And I know that I have the analytic that every 24 months, Joe Bob becomes somebody else's problem. Okay? So now if I'm the insurance company and I can provide an obstruction to Joe Bob surgery and monetize a prescription treatment, and I can wait within 24 months max, it is statistically probable that Joe Bob becomes somebody else's problem. Why? Because the average American switches jobs every 24 months. I have no incentive to prevent chronic disease because prevention or analytics costs me money. Running that blood test costs me money. And if I just wait and write them a prescription, the patient feels like their insurance did them a favor, and then the patient ends up getting pushed down the pathway towards chronic disease, and in 18 to 24 months, they work for a new person. And now they're a different insurance company because most people in America are insured by their employer. It's either their employer or the federal government. So as long as I continue to obstruct, delay, what Luigi put on those bullets, delay, deny, depose. If I can continue to delay your care, to deny your care, and to depose objections to your care and make you litigate things out or fight for your coverage, the saddest part is less than 10% of people fight a denial. So that's the other analytic.
Wow.
So if I'm, again, you just got to look at the system. I don't even want to portray it as shift your brain to say, I can't judge a carpenter for wielding a hammer, right? His job's to wield the hammer and to build the house. So why are we shocked when carpenters are building houses, right? I always say the termites make their living chewing the wood. You can't be shocked when we bust termites chewing the wood.
Yeah.
That's how they're making their living. And so the silo, okay? So all these different areas are failing the American people. Then chronic disease is on an all-time escalation high. Prescription drug care is on an all-time high, 4 or more prescription drugs. People are dying at an all-time rate, but profits are also at an all-time high.
Yeah.
So I would say the system isn't failing, and this is what I said in front of the Senate. So often people say our healthcare system's broken. It's not broken. It's rigged. And we are the ones fitting the bill. And the bill is not just being paid in dollars and cents. It's being paid in loved ones' lives.
Yeah. Okay, so this is important and heavy, and also I'm hopefully a lot of aha moments for people that are listening and sharing this episode to other people. Okay, so what do you say to the person that says, okay, the sort of weird convergence of what we've always done in health with politics and this whole MAHA movement, and people saying, okay, you talk about corporate capture, what makes you trust the Republican Party and Donald Trump and the Republican, like Republicans historically have really been part of that corporate capture. So what do you say to that?
I think our answer is we have to fight for truth and forget party lines. Chronic disease doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat.
Yeah.
Cancer's killing all of us. And chronic disease is killing all of our loved ones, Republicans and Democrats. And so for me, I've never truly been political. It's very weird that we've kind of gotten involved in.
Know.
Like,
how did this happen?
Yeah, because in so many fronts, I disagree with both parties.
Yes.
And to me, I'm a one subject. I'm healthcare, right? This is my passion, and I've lived it. And what I can say is what we're doing isn't working. And I am all for having a lively conversation that is bipartisan, that will help us drive meaningful change.
Yeah.
And how it spurred for me was candidly, Bobby heard me on Rogan and his team reached out and said, would you be willing to drive to Dallas, ironically, where we are now? And I drove to Dallas one day during the week, and he was here for a campaign. And this was when he was running for president. And to his credit, he took 30 minutes for a nobody like me, rolled up his sleeves, took his coat off, rolled up his sleeves. We were sitting here just like you and I right now in a room just talking. And he was like, wait, explain to me, what are these PBMs? Walk me through, like, what, because I know insurance companies and I know this, I know that. What are these other elements that you were talking about on Rogan, these other pillars? And he was so genuinely interested and like seemed to really want to help. And then a few weeks later, they said, hey, do you want to come do Bobby's podcast, the Maha podcast? And I said, yeah, I would love to. And so I came and did it, and we caught up and like we systematically got into all this stuff. And from there, it just kind of became this thing where, hey, do you have any interest in testifying in front of the Senate? And what I love about the movement is they are talking about areas of healthcare that nobody has ever we're all the way down to food, to farming, to agriculture, to pesticides, because all of those are part of this chronic disease crisis.
Yeah.
And
that's what's crazy to me is that, again, I love how you answered that, but the idea, like, this is our lane, like, whether the world's paying attention or not, health will still be our lane. But we've never had these conversations with a top-down sort of apparatus before, the federal government. And when you also think it's like none of the people that are in HHS, they're not Republicans, quote unquote.
Yes.
Anyways,
Yeah.
So you could this is a very, I would say, a historical realignment of an influx of independents. And most of them actually former Democrats or even current Democrats.
What's crazy, I've always voted Democrat.
Yeah.
I've always
Same.
been
I voted for
Democrat.
Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
And so for me, I'm not, even though I grew up in Texas, I'm not like, I'm team humanity.
Yes.
Like, my thing is, we have to be able to be honest with ourselves and with each other. And what I've seen with the lobbying groups is they are using that divisiveness as a tool to destroy and to obstruct, to delay and deny. Like, right? Mm-hmm. I'm watching it. Yeah. I'm literally watching these lobbyists go behind the scenes and try and play Democrats off of Republicans, try and make this about politics, not people.
Yes.
And it's about people.
Yeah, that's the tribalism. They're weaponizing the tribalism.
Yes.
It's also interesting to me, and you mentioned meeting with Bobby here in Dallas when he was running for president. When I was watching that campaign and what the DNC did every single state, suing him, trying to bankrupt him through lawfare, what did you think of that? To me, it was like, when I heard him talk and he said, yeah, statistically, Bobby said this, I actually pull more people from Trump's campaign than Biden and Kamala's campaign. Why isn't Trump suing me in every state? Why is this DNC apparatus suing me in every single state? What was it? And it's almost like it's like this corporate capture is that they're working within that side of things.
I think you're right. And my feeling on it as somebody who's been a Democrat most of my life is what changed for me was, and this is just my personal opinion, the Democrats became, you have to agree with me on everything or you're not allowed to be part of our team. Mm-hmm. And so I kind of became independent. I didn't have a party. Mm-hmm. And I still would say I'm independent. I may lean left on a lot of topics and I may lean right on some, but like, my view on most of this is I'm going to stay in my lane and stay with what I know. And what I do know is this ain't working. And right. And I can tell you, Bobby's willing to fix it and he's fighting for it. So I'm going to align with a man who seems to have conviction on a hot button topic for me, where I can maybe add some value and maybe I can finally have a voice. Like what you had said earlier, being in this space forever, we'll be talking about this even when nobody else is because it's our lives.
Right.
And since I was a 21-year-old kid, basically, I've been in healthcare. Even though I'm not a clinician like yourself, I've seen all these different touch points and I've gone, what the hell?
Yeah. So do you think there's hope to get the people? I'm looking at people like Cory Booker, who's talking about chronic disease, Bernie Sanders. Like, to me, it's like, okay, can't we find what's in common with each other and come together? We haven't been able to do so. I don't know what the cognitive dissonance is. Because it shouldn't be. They're all saying the same thing.
I know.
What's the problem?
My answer is I hope. I hope, and you just keep trying to kill people with, compassion, kindness, and empathy. And I'm just saying, hey, I'm not your enemy. I'm not your enemy. I'm not team anyone. I'm team humanity.
Who's going to progress this? Yeah, that's the question.
But the challenge, the answer is it's an uphill battle. I think you're right because I'm watching the lobbyists move their chess pieces and like, even with the food issue, they're running Callie's offense that Callie said that he helped build with Coca-Cola. Like back when he was a lobbyist where he was, or consultant, where he was told like, they lobbied the NAACP to make taking soft drinks off of food stamps racist. And what's crazy to me is, like, growing up in Texas, I grew up in a foster family. We had 4 foster kids at a time. This is some of the most underprivileged, underserved, hardest working people in our state. And we are systematically pushing poisons and giving them one more hurdle to have to jump over. And I grew up in a foster family where we drank Cokes and soft drinks and all those things every day. And guess what? My brothers are diabetic. My sister's diabetic. My dad is diabetic. My mom was diabetic. I lost a brother to opioids. Addiction breeds addiction. Habits breed habits. And I said, like, people say chronic disease and chronic illness runs in families. That does not run in families. Epigenetics run in your family. Genetics are in your family. Behaviors, lifestyle, and choices also run in your family.
Yeah.
And when you take the genetics, which is the gun, and you load it with the bullets of diet and lifestyle, and then you give it for free, you're pulling the trigger. And we don't have to pull the trigger. I'm all for helping people, but should we be poisoning them?
Yeah, paying to feed chronic disease in their body.
Like there's other alternatives. We've got to incentivize healthy alternatives. And the other thing I'll say on that topic is my mom didn't know, right? And a lot of people don't. It's confusing. Like my mom thought buying me Lay's baked potato chips was healthy. Sun-kissed potato chips, I think it was back then.
Yeah.
And we ate sun potato chips.
Yeah, they marketed like it looks more natural.
Yes.
On the bag.
With a bologna sandwich using Miracle Whip because we thought it was healthier on wheat bread. I know that sounds crazy.
No, I get it. I'm from the Rust Belt, Western Pennsylvania. I get it.
And we would drink a Diet Coke instead of a Coke.
100%.
And all of that is terrible with no nutritional value.
But they're picking the better option.
Yes.
Wild, right? It's wild. We're setting our people up for failure. So what do you, I mean, obviously, the judgment that we get, right, is that us talking about removing soda and junk food from SNAP is elitist and racist. You mentioned that's like kind of a talking point from Big Food.
Yeah.
Using social issues, using social justice to weaponizing social justice because it's virtue signaling, right? Because it sounds okay. Yeah, I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be a racist. I don't want to be elitist. What do you say to that? Those people.
I mean, I say it's a smokescreen. It's a smokescreen because to me, systematically poisoning one of the most impoverished demographics of our society is racist, and
it's upside down.
It's insane. It's
like the Orwellian upside down. Like the things they're accusing people of, it's like they are actually harming people.
Yeah.
Who's
who's delivering that message is the lobbyists,
right?
Right.
Which they're getting the maybe well-intentioned social justice warrior on social media to be their voice.
In that same note, same demographic, different topic. literally, when I testified about food, one of the lobbyists stood up there, and I have it on my Instagram, but he stood up there and he said, the biggest risk factor to food is organic. It's organic farming. We use manure. And if you look at who this guy is, he's a lobbyist for the chemical companies. Okay, you even have the chemical companies sitting in these groups, and their message is, if you get rid of our chemicals and preservatives, you will make this food more expensive for the impoverished communities. And it's essentially like you're a bad guy because you're not feeding them chemicals. Now we have to fight you for feeding just straight up chemicals to people.
Yeah. They're running out of things to spend. They're running out of things to spend, but they're still trying.
Yes.
They're still trying.
And that was one that was such a stretch that even left and right, like everybody in the room were like, I don't even remember the senator, but she was like, okay, I got to stop you. Like, if you're going to come in here and this is where I just have to say this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can't, I get it. There's a level of grace I'll give, but like, you're not going to come in here and tell me that organic food is killing people. Like, stop. And he tried to go, ma'am, if you look at the research of, they have to use animal feces and organic chemical treatments on soil is better than organic soils are more dangerous than chemically treated soils, is the gist of it.
Yeah.
And
that's the sort of Orwellian upside down we're living in. So you were in the room, weren't you in the room in the Texas legislative, whatever, building you were in when there was a lobbyist for the American Heart Association? Were you there?
That was the day I wasn't there,
okay.
But my friend Grace was, and I saw all that.
So break it down, like what happened and then the retraction.
Well, so what happened is they were arguing against these things, against these movements, and they had the American Heart Association arguing against these movements, and the whole principle was they're funded from Big Food.
Yeah.
Big Food is providing, I don't remember, Callie told me the number, but I got too many numbers. It's an insane amount of money.
Yeah, basically the American Heart Association, I think, the lobbyist was pushing for, this is wrong to remove soda from SNAP, but then they had to retract it because all this attention came on them, really, and said it was a mistake. Yeah. I don't know how you make that mistake.
This is a true story, too. I literally, we live in Texas, so I literally went to go grab dinner, and I'm at this Mexican restaurant in Austin, and the bartender's like, can I buy you a drink? And I'm like, what? And he's like, I just would love to buy you a drink and say thank you for what you're doing. And I was like, oh, man, I didn't even know what he's saying. He's like, I saw that you were testifying. I've been following all this Maha stuff. And he goes, I just wanted to tell you a crazy story. I was in my buddy's office who's a lobbyist, and he was watching a video of you on Rogan. And the whole gist of it was, they're not scared of going in that room and spewing lies for these big conglomerates if they don't think anyone's going to find out other than the senators that are hearing the lies. They're terrified of spewing those lies in this social media world where there's podcasts and you and I are going to talk about these things, and you and I are going to go meet with other people who have big platforms too and are going to talk about these things. It is given the power back to the people to expose corruption and collusion in a level that we've never had.
Yeah.
And so if that message wouldn't have gotten elevated on social media, the American Heart Association would have never backpedaled.
Never.
And I only share that story because the gist of the message of this lobbyist to this bartender at a Mexican restaurant that's his buddy, it's like a young college kid, was his people were like, we got to kind of be careful now because things we say can come outside of those chambers at a level much more than before.
Yeah.
And that's a part that is a new element to the dynamic that these lobbyists are having to face.
And there's so much attention
part of
on
Maha is a huge part of that.
100%. So we're touching on it, like the American Heart Association, the American Diabetic Association, the American Cancer Association. It even goes to that, right? I mean, people are surprised when I post about that too. It's like, oh, wait, the big food corporate capture is even on those. I thought I was, I'm wearing this sort of pink ribbon. I'm doing the good thing. But like, what's the story behind those organizations?
Yeah. They're all funded.
Yeah. They're funded by the same industries.
By all of these industries. And they are the major funders of most of these organizations. And they have their ear and they lean on these organizations. And these organizations, to stay alive, have to raise funding.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the challenge even for senators, congressmen, and congresswomen. If we don't keep line of sight and hold people accountable, when all things are equal, people take the path of least resistance. And if we give people off ramps and we can say, oh, don't do this food stamp stuff, that would be racist. And by the way, your lobbyist who funds you doesn't want you to do this, right? It's a double whammy. And so we are fighting a tough battle, but the nuclear bomb that we have that we've never had before is we can bring this knowledge to the public directly, and we can go, guys, hey, I want you to understand, the American Heart Association didn't get up there and say that because they believe it, right? If we look at the American Diabetes, what is the number one risk for heart attack or stroke once you take out smoking? Or let's go cancer. Number one risk, every chronic disease. We can just go down the list. But number one risk of cancer. If we take out age and smoking, the number one risk of cancer is obesity and metabolic disease. And what causes obesity and metabolic disease? All of these ultra-processed, nutrient-deprived, caloric-dense foods. And if we're pushing this on our most impoverished communities, we are setting them up for failure. And I'm not just saying it from some ivory tower. I grew up in those families. I know. So you're not going to fool me.
No. And it's these big foods that are feeding chronic disease that are then funding, in part, these American Heart Association, et cetera. And you see the foods that have the stamp, like the special pink edition Breast Cancer Awareness Month are foods that feed the cancer. Yeah.
And one of the things there's so many different bills going on. It's very exciting. It really, really is, because I just don't know of a time when this has ever happened, especially in Texas, dude. We're in Texas, and we are literally, I know there's, I think, 3 or 4 bills. I've testified on 2. I'm testifying on the SNAP bill next week. On the 15th, they've asked me to come in and testify. But I literally was testifying about a label change. I can't remember the bill. All the Texas government is saying is, and it already passed the Senate, and I think the House, and now it's in the Senate, it literally is, we need to put any chemical or ultra-processed food that has banned ingredients in other nations, we think there should be a disclaimer on the label. Okay? And the lobbyist argument and their pushback is this will take us years. We need 5 years to get this done. They tell one group we're willing to do it. Then they go to another group and they go, we're not willing to do it, or it'll take us forever. And what they try to do is stall, delay, deny, install, depose, and just create chaos and wait out the administration. And so that's where I go back to, when you're asking me Republicans or Democrats, it's going to require the people. It's going to require the Maha moms. It's going to require people like you, me, fighting, exposing truth. I'm saying this isn't political. This is just truth.
It should be bipartisan, like you said. Can you talk about the history? We're leaning into the big food now, and it's sort of that side of this apparatus of the sick care system. Can you talk briefly about the history of tobacco getting into big food, which I find that fascinating?
Yeah. What's crazy is, and this is full transparency, when I was a little kid, I don't know, 6, 7, my dad worked for U.S. Smokeless Tobaccos. And I remember my dad saying, smokeless tobacco is the healthiest form of tobacco, right? And he lived it. He dipped. He did all those things. It was the 80s. He thought the shit he was saying was true. He really did.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. It's so easy to join an ideology or a team and begin to drink your own Kool-Aid, and it's dangerous.
Yes.
And so Big Tobacco saw the writing on the wall, and Big Tobacco went out and acquired several of the large food manufacturing companies, and they ran the same offense. They are actually part of the lobbying group that created the food pyramid behind the scenes that then led to all of these ultra-processed foods, carb-rich diets that we're consuming. And then because that same protocol, you're seeing the profits begin to decline at tobacco, you run that offense. How do we create more enticing foods, more, I hate to use the word addictive, but candidly more addictive, more abusive, more foods where it's not gonna satiate appetite. You're gonna come back and be hungry in a few hours and eat more of it. And all of that was built around hitting profits, right? That then created this cascade effect. But you can go back even before that. I talked about on Rogan, Bayer, Monsanto are the same company. Like, right? They're the same company. And if you go back to the history of Bayer and its prescription medications, Bayer was testing its medications on Jewish concentration camp occupants. And there's literally letters back and forth between Bayer and the Third Reich, where Bayer's like, we received 180 women in great health and working order. Unfortunately, none of them survived phase 1 of the trial. We kindly request that we get another, basically, train load. And you can look all this up. This is real. And you go, well, Brigham, that was World War II, right? That's not happening today. That wouldn't happen today. Now you jump to the 80s, okay? They knowingly infected patients with HIV. They had a hemophilia drug that it got inadvertently contaminated, and they knew it. And they knew that there was a chance a percentage of patients would develop HIV and die, because this was when HIV was a death sentence. They had the choice to destroy the lot and lose millions of dollars, probably billions, or ship to a third world country. They shipped it all to third world countries where they thought they'd fly under the radar.
Right.
These are the people. This is the history of this organization that is now Bayer Monsanto that sprays all the chemicals on the foods. And now you go to the foods and what they did in Vietnam and like all the different food treatments that they test in third world countries that are leading to all these abnormalities and childbirth defects. And now we know like Roundup and how it leads to cancer. But guess what? Bayer's selling cancer drugs, and there's buku dollars in all of their cancer drugs, and all of it systematically. I go back to, not to be conspiratorial, but to show you. I remember being taught as a kid, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. When somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And it's like, these people have shown us who they are.
They have showed. We should have got it by now.
Yeah.
It's like, if there's something wrong with us, if we don't get it by now. But this always was like, people got behind it. But I feel like now that it's tangentially connected to Trump, they don't care. They're that deranged.
Yeah.
They used to have, like most of the people, center of left, they could get behind this. Now they are big fans of Roundup. They love it. They'll drink it.
Like,
they'll drink Red 40.
And that's why I go to, like, just get rid of the TDS, Trump derangement syndrome, and let's just look at the topic.
Forget about him.
Yeah.
What's the vehicle to progress this movement?
Yes. Because let's say that, I mean, if Trump has to, everyone loses by trying to prove somebody wrong on something they're right on, right? Stop trying to make this wins and losses. It's not wins and losses. It's lives. It's lives. It's our lives. It's our loved ones' lives.
Man.
I don't care who's in power. Can we work together to fix this? And the answer is yes, if we work together. Because the truth of the matter is, people want, these lobbyists, these big conglomerates want us divided. They do want us divided. Yes. They want to make it about some reason other than we are criminals, like running criminal enterprises that are really harming Americans every day.
Yeah.
And if we aren't willing to look past our differences to work together and go, man, and I hate to keep making it political. I'm really not. I'm just like, we do have to work together, though. This is,
people.
There's a movement here, and the movement's working. That's where I was going earlier. It's beyond federal to now it's at the state level, and the state legislatures are trying to push in Texas, we're pushing 4 different bills.
Yeah, how many states are, it's a lot of states are pushing this. This is happening on all levels.
Yeah, I saw Callie debating somebody in Arizona the other day.
West Virginia.
It's everywhere. All of the states are going, wow, hold on a second. Like, this is real, and this is costing us an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah.
An exorbitant amount of money at the state and federal level.
Well, once you start going state by state, it's going to be a snowball effect, would be my hope, at least optimistically.
Yeah.
Is that they can't make different products for different states.
Well, and that's what the lobbyists are already trying to use as a tool now in their tool belt.
Right.
They're going to the state and going, no. Why don't you guys say you believe in the federal government and that you're Americans. Why don't we let the federal government drive state nationwide legislation so we're not having to cater to each state? And my rebuttal to that is no, keep fighting at the state level, because what you're going to do is force the hand of these large chemical companies, soft drink companies, food conglomerates, pharmaceutical companies, insurance companies. And they're going to go, you know what? This is a battle because the people are screaming so loud that we can't win. We're better off letting the federal government give us their overarching game plan than continuing to try and fight this war at every state level where we're losing.
Yeah. Oh, and that's just, to me, it's so symbolic, I guess, of if it has to start this way on a state, it makes complete sense, but it also is showing you that it is a grassroots people movement. It's not a political thing. It's like populists, which is a populist versus statists. I really think it is now. And the populists are going to disagree on many different things. Yeah. But we're going to come together on this. Yeah. Hopefully continue to do so. This has been a blessing, man, of a conversation. Before we go, at the end of every episode, we have your art of being well. What's the worst tasting healthy food that you eat? It tastes freaking disgusting, but you eat it for its health benefits.
Oh, man, that's a tough one. Let me think.
Yeah, think about it.
I would say I'm not a vegetable guy. As terrible as that is, but I try to eat spinach and fiber sources with my meat sources. Gosh, I'm trying to think if there's anything I do. I'm not, and if you're busy, I'm not a huge fan. No matter how good people say protein bars are, I don't know any that I really like.
It's hard to find.
And it's just a way to get protein. And it's not ideal. I'm sure you encourage people to try and find natural food sources. But if I'm on the fly and I haven't eaten and I just want to make sure I maintain adequate protein levels to avoid being hungry and losing lean muscle as I age. So I do substitute with like protein bars, but I don't like any of them.
I love it. Is there like one that's like least offensive that you like or you go to more?
The RX bars.
Okay.
Yeah, the RX bars. Okay. You know, they're all natural, and I don't know what your thoughts are, but they're good flavor. Yeah, good.
They do taste good for sure. Next question: what's the weirdest or maybe most out of the box thing you've done for your wellness that you're willing to admit on a podcast?
A lot of it's become mainstream. Like the ice bath stuff 5 years ago was kind of random. Now everyone does it. One of the coolest, it's different, but it's more of like, I monitor my sleep and all those things, which is common now too. I have that sleep aid, and so I know my sleep, my REM sleep, my deep sleep, my heart rate variability. I try to supplement magnesium and zinc and all these things, and then I track it, and I see, did I make an improvement? But one of the things I added was an AI-guided EEG, and so I used a product from Wave Neuroscience where we assessed my brain, and it was just a neat tool because it was out there. Like, I'm like, now I'm getting so ridiculous that I'm like taking the time to scan my brain to try and assess how I can better optimize my sleep, my anxiety level, like, all of that, and just make sure my brain is healthy and optimize my brain health. And so this EEG assessment essentially measures your beta waves and your alpha waves at the posterior and then the prefrontal cortex of your brain. And it tells me where my brain is misfiring and where I'm losing. So the way they explained it to me, these neurologists, which made it easy for my little monkey brain to understand, was like, think of it like a cell phone where you have 50 apps open. A lot of times we don't realize that our brain has 50 apps open. Yeah. And that these waves, we may be firing at 14 hertz at the posterior of our brain. By the time it gets to the front, some people may only be going at 9, or 7 or 6 or whatever. Depends on the speed of your brain and how much you're deteriorating. Mm-hmm. But all those waves are going somewhere else. Yeah. And all those beta waves become background noise, like white noise in your brain that become apps that are open, that are burning energy, bandwidth, attention, focus, sleep, anxiety. Mm-hmm. And so through assessing your brain, we can then optimize the brain. And so that was the craziest thing I've done, the
That's
most techie thing. But when I did it, I got all this stuff hooked up to my head, and I literally remember thinking, this is fucking insanity that we're getting to a point where we can use AI to guide our brains and tell us where it's misfiring.
That's great. Do you like the Sleep 8?
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. We helped somebody, an influencer, and he's actually sponsored by them. And then I came home one day and I got a gift at my house, and it was a Sleep 8. And I'm like, holy shit, this is one of the nicest gifts anyone's ever given me.
For people that don't know, again, I have no connection with them whatsoever, but I have telehealth patients that like it.
Yeah.
From a data standpoint, it's like a sleep tracking, right?
It's amazing because what it is, and I have I'm not paid by them or anything. I just think it's a cool piece of technology.
Yeah.
It is a mattress cover that gauges how well you're sleeping and then starts to make adjustments. So what I mean by that is it'll read your body temperature, it'll read your deep sleep, your REM sleep, and your heart rate variability. It will know how many hours of deep and REM you're getting. And then it starts to track your body in fluctuations. And it knows like, hey, if Brigham's hot, his REM sleep's slightly lower, and it cools the mattress by up to 3 degrees, right?
Yeah.
But then my girlfriend, she is always cold. So it heats the mattress on her side of the bed. But then it's just another tool in the tool belt for me to know, like if I do, like I did hyperbaric 2 days ago, and it's the first time I had done hyperbaric since having a Sleep 8. My heart rate variability tripled.
Wow.
So that was a really cool data set because I go, oh my God.
You can see the
I got immediate response in a tangible, measurable way.
Yeah, with one session.
And so it's fascinating to me because I'm like, it's just another way to track things and try to optimize things. And I think the future is with AI and algorithm-based medicine and everything we're in our ability to have accessibility to knowledge, the future is going to be bright.
Yeah.
Like in the future, my hope is if you got chronic disease, it's your fault. Like I really hope. Because right now,
we're setting you up for success.
Yes.
Yeah. Versus failure.
Yes. Because right now, everyone is, I feel, set up for failure. And it's tough. It's a tough world to navigate.
Yeah.
But if we get this right and we do what I hope all of us can do together as a team, there is tremendous hope that chronic disease reaches all-time lows.
Amen to that. Great way to end. My friend, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Where do people go?
My company's Ways2Well, and then my Instagram's just Brigham.Buhler. And yeah, that's it. I'm on Instagram and X and all that stuff, trying to ring the bell on all this stuff, a lot like you.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me.